It's certainly a lot better than the last animated film about dragons. Raya and the Last Dragon was released in 2021 and was directed by Carlos Lopez Estrada and Don Hall. It tells the story of how the dragons used to live in harmony with the humans. However, an evil monster had destroyed the land and the dragons had sacrificed themselves to save humanity. 500 years later, the monsters have returned to destroy the land, and a young warrior named Raya is on a quest to find Sisu, the last dragon, and they must team up to stop the bad guys. I saw a lot of potential in this film, Raya and the Last Dragon. It seemed like an interesting movie to me, so I decided to give it a watch. And sadly, after seeing it, I'm pretty disappointed with it. The story felt bland to me. I just found it to be very bland and not very interesting. In the beginning, it had some cliches that were executed incredibly poorly to me, with two characters are friends at first and a few seconds later there's a betrayal, and they had a chosen one cliche, well, not quite as bad as the other cliche, but still not very well done to me. It honestly felt to me not a lot had happened in the movie, and it just sadly didn't do it for me. I don't think it suffers from using cliches and being a bit predictable. For me, it just suffers from being bland, just not very interesting. It felt dull and just poor. It's not a terribly written story, but it just sadly wasn't my kind of story. It wasn't my cup of tea. Which is a massive shame because I genuinely did see the potential of it. It did look like an interesting film. Just the story, not good enough. The animation alone is beautiful, from the character designs, the backgrounds, the movements, locations. Oh my god, this is one gorgeous looking animated movie. Like, this film looks amazing. It's one of Disney's best looking films. It just looks so gorgeous. The detail, oh my god, it's so beautiful to look at. Now, a lot of people seem to be very mixed on Sisu's design, and I can see why. She's meant to be an old dragon, but she's a very young looking. But I actually quite liked her design the more I think about it. I thought she was a pretty cute character design. I'll get to the character later. So, it's a beautiful looking film. It's so gorgeous to look at. Like, it is like so gorgeously stunning. Raya is an okay protagonist. She has an interesting character arc, but I feel she's not quite as fleshed out as she could be, and I think that holds her back. It just feels like she's half written and half nothing to me. Sisu is fun. I do feel she tries to be the very slapstick and funny, but she's not a bad character, and I thought she was pretty good. She's definitely the best thing about this movie, and she is very likable. She is a little too silly at times, but she's good enough for what she is. The other characters were okay, but it felt to me they're barely developed and felt lacking. Bon was cool, and I liked his interaction with Sisu, and he is pretty chuckle-worthy with his sense of humour, but other than that, the others such as Baby Noi and Tong were just kinda there, and I feel like I barely got to know them as characters and get attached to them. The villain Numari was awful. I thought she was a terrible villain. She had nothing to her character, and in the beginning, I felt like I barely got to know her. She's a villain and does bad things, but she has zero character development. Not only is she very cliche and bland, but how they wrapped up her character just felt lazy to me. She's so incredibly one-dimensional. So yeah, the characters, the soundtrack even didn't do it for me. It's just, sadly, like again, my biggest problem with the story, just not my kind of music. It's just, I don't know, it doesn't exhilarate me. Like, I didn't find the music to be very good. Like, not horrible, but just kind of eh. So sadly, it just wasn't my cup of tea. Overall, sadly, Raya and the Last Dragon was a letdown for me. It just suffered from a bland story and a mixed bag of characters. It definitely has its merit, and it does have beautiful animation. But sadly, it just didn't do it for me. I'm gonna have to give Raya and the Last Dragon a 6 out of 10. I don't think it's a terrible movie. It definitely has its merit. There is some good character interactions. But other than that, it's just a letdown in my eyes. Maybe I'll give it a second chance someday, see if it could grow on me. But for now, as it stands, quite disappointing to me. But hey, if you love the movie, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. So, what do you guys think of Raya and the Last Dragon? Have you seen it? Let me know in the comments. Stay tuned, guys, for the next review. And until then, guys, skadoosh everyone, and take care.